My life has been somewhat like a ultra run. Sometimes just stuck in the middle of hell, and the only way to get out of it is to keep pushing forward, keep running. It was a struggle growing up. I did face a lot of challenges, and my surroundings weren't ideal. The people that were around me led to a lot of heartache, and I'd been through so much from being such a young kid and heading into my teens that ultimately broke me. It really stripped me down and just left me hollow. So I've always been a runner. Being a little kid, I always remember running around at school, at home, with friends. But I didn't enter the ultra world until maybe 8, 9 years ago. I loved the rawness about it. I think that's what drew me to it. It didn't matter who you were or what you'd done or how tough you were. It would rip everything away from you, every ounce of strength. The ultra world was just an imaginary place for me. And once I started running with Sam and Ando, they introduced me to trails and I started training with them. And I asked Sam, how do you even begin to start prepping for an ultra? And he just said simply, just go for a run till you're hurting, run a little bit further, and then turn around and come home. But sure enough, I think it was only like a week later, I thought, oh yeah, I'll go for a little run. I woke up and I took off. I had no shirt, no hat.
I think he had a kind of time frame in mind, but he didn't take his phone, he didn't take any water.
Started running to Wynnum, and then before I knew it, I was on the edge of the city. I was laying down on the ground, and then I thought, well, the only thing left to do is just to get back up and walk and run home.
He was resorting to park taps in people's homes, asking if he could drink from their tap. Basically 12 hours later, coming into darkness, I'm just like, yeah, I'm sure he'll figure this out.
I was so dehydrated, sunburnt, I had blisters, chafe, and eventually I got home. A week later, I entered my first trail race, the Glasshouse 100 miler, and that was a big learning curve. My support crew at the time had withdrawn, and I had asked Mel to crew me, and she was really nervous because she'd never done it before. I'd been running with Sam and Endo, who were running at cracking pace. There was a moment within that 30 kilometres that they had just started peeling off and I was fading away really bad. And eventually I got to the second or third checkpoint and I'd come in to weigh myself and I went to stand on the scales and down I went. I just remember waking up in a chair. I was severely dehydrated. I sat down for about 30 minutes and I went back out and I made it to about roughly around 86 kilometres. I remember coming into that checkpoint and Phoenix is standing on the side of the trail and wearing his Batman cape, and I just laid on the trail. I was worried because, Mel, I just started beginning to focus on, her safety, and I guess that really put me in a bad headspace because I wasn't focusing on the race then. And as I was laying on the trail, I thought, what if something happens and I'm out running and Mel can't contact me, and I was hurting, and it was just an easy way for me to go, okay, well that's it, I'm pulling out of this race. You would think that you would just stick to doing shorter runs, but I just had this desire to maybe do more than 100 mile, and so I started training properly and started taking on advice and changing my running style, because I'm not a natural runner. I'm not a natural long distance runner. I've really had to work hard to build up the tolerance for ultra running, and I think as time progressed I did that, and so my next race from that was Wild Earth Nerang 200 miler. That was the first time that I had used my past challenges to propel me forward, which ultimately led to me trying to tackle a 500-kilometre trail race. I felt like I could do it. I just had a bit more confidence. In the first 50K, I had tripped over. I'd busted my knee pretty bad, and I didn't do anything about it until maybe the 75-kilometre mark. I'd come into a checkpoint. A lady put me on the table, and she said, "Look, your knee's out." And then she gave it a little wiggle, and it sort of popped back in a little bit. And she's like, "You have to. You won't be able to continue." I was like, oh, I've got to at least try. And I went back out, and I got 10 kilometres into the race, and my knee went out again, and I'm sitting in the dark, and I'm trying to get a bit of support, so someone sent in a car to pick me up. And then I thought, that's it, I'm done with this race. I had a shower, sat down in the tent, and then I was offered a knee brace, and I thought, well, I may as well give it a crack. And I put this knee brace on, and I went out. I kept pushing on. As the race went on, my leg just started to swell up, and I got to 350 kilometres. I just remember hobbling back to the checkpoint, and I had no skin on the bottom of my feet. I had my toenails were falling off. They were bleeding. My knee was throbbing, and I just thought, you know what, I'm done. And I found it really hard after that race. I had a real down moment. I fell out of love with running. When I was 13, I just felt bare. I felt completely stripped down, and it did lead to an unfortunate situation. I had entered my bedroom one day, and I didn't plan coming out. There was a lot of domestic violence and physical abuse, and which ultimately led to, my mental state just maxed out. I remember, dealing with the things that I dealt with at home, and then having to go to school and put on this front that I was a happy, bubbly kid, and but deep down inside, I was terrified, I was scared, and if it wasn't for my school cross country, I don't think I would be here now. At the time, I had been wearing these big black Doc Martens steel cap boots to school, and we didn't have a lot of money for running shoes, and I just really wanted to compete, and having those boots on, it just wasn't ideal, and so I decided not to run that race. I remember sitting on the side like it was yesterday, and watching all these kids line up and wearing their fancy shoes, and I just remember the sports teacher raising his hand in the air, and then the pistol going off, and then I thought, stuff it, I'm going. I got up and just ran as hard as I could, boots and all. I remember just trying to catch the leaders. I remember the blisters forming on my heels, and they were red raw. But I just didn't care. I was like, I'm just going to keep running. And I just didn't really faze me at all. I was just in this complete different world. And I remember seeing the leaders up ahead, and I just remember running as hard as I could, running down this parkway, heading back towards the high school. And I knew I wasn't going to win the race, but I just ran as hard as I could. I remember coming back on the oval, and 3 boys had finished in front of me, and I just remember having this big smile on my face. And it was funny because no one around knew what I'd been through growing up. They didn't realise how big of a moment that was for me. And yeah, I felt unstoppable. And I remember shortly after, two of my best mates were training down at a local boxing gym in Cleveland. And they invited me to come with them. And I knew that if I'd gone there after school, I'd be in a lot of trouble when I got home, but I don't know, I felt a bit reckless. And I would go down and, you know, we would spar, and I'd finish the training session with a bloody nose, and I'd get home and I'd get in so much trouble. And I just felt this new strength about me. I suppose I carry that with me everywhere I go today. You know, and I was angry with everything that I'd been through, and I think, you know, using that and jumping in the ring, and it was the greatest release. I felt like I was fighting for my life. In time to come, I decided to just run because that's where I found comfort. And all the hard times that I'd been through, it allowed me to find comfort in uncomfortable situations, because of what I was facing at home, and then I was going to school. I had to force myself to be in situations where I didn't want to be. I didn't want anyone knowing what I was going through. I didn't want them to know that I was sad. I didn't want them to know that I was, you know, crying just moments before school started, or what had happened the night before. Being a 13-year-old kid, and at that moment, being so fragile, that moment will always stay with me for the rest of my life. I always think about it. Although I can put it at the back of my mind, I'm always thinking about it at some point. It's just one of those deep scars that never really heals. It took a lot of strength after what I did to be able to get back up, to realise after it had happened that maybe I'm stronger than I thought. Yeah. I just remember sitting in my room after that moment and just trying to gather my thoughts, because leading into it, it was quite a bit of a blur. When I'm running ultras, I have to remember that I'm a strong person, that I have the strength to get through it. So there is a part of me that takes me back to that place, but instead of looking at it as a negative, I just think about the strength that I drew from it. I had left my old high school and started at a new high school just up the road, about halfway through year 9. I remember sitting in soc ed, and I was already sitting in class, and then Mel had walked in with a few of her friends, and oh geez, I don't know, I think I was in love.
It was the smile and the hair. He had the blonde surfy hair, which was like all the rage at that time.
At the time, because everything that was, you know, happening with me, and I tried not to think about it or act on it too much, so I left it for quite a while.
At the end of grade 10, he finally asked me out, and it was the best day of my life. And it's been amazing ever since, ups, downs, all of it.
I guess over time, you know, I started sharing little bits and pieces, and she had started seeing a few things that were happening, and she's a smart girl. She put it together, she put the pieces together. Weeks and months started going on. Home life for me was, you know, pretty out of control. and it got to a point where I had no longer a place to call home. She had said that she was going to ask her mum and dad, and that scared me to death. But her mum and dad took me in with open arms.
I think we learnt a lot about each other in a very short space. Essentially, we were growing up together, going through high school together, and learning life lessons together, like losing loved ones and friends. And it was a whirlwind, but it was really amazing.
Yeah, it's when I probably had the first opportunity to grow as a person. Going to events and doing some of the stuff that I've done over the years. I guess when you have responsibilities, when you're with certain companies, and when you're flying here and you're flying there and you're doing this and doing that, and you're around all these new people and you're meeting new people, and I found it really hard because of what I've been through and the story that I share within mental health. If I don't step out and do those things, then I'm not really helping. Sierra she was such a beautiful child. She was so well behaved and content. All that energy that I'd spent in the gym was just put into loving her and nurturing her. I could feel inside myself I was definitely changing. Work was important because, put a roof over our heads. I just wanted to do everything I could to, support Mel and support Sierra. And we tried again, and then Phoenix came, and Phoenix was the polar opposite to Sierra. He was just come bounding out, bouncing off the walls, just when we thought we were done with kids. And surprise, we had little Shiloh. And Shiloh is twice as energized as Phoenix, if not 10 times. And I guess now I'm running for them as much as I'm running for myself. I feel that when I'm running, I want to show them that they can face hard challenges and still get through it and still be standing at the end of it. And that's something I really hope they take with them for the rest of their lives. I hope they see that the lessons that I'm trying to show them, and I hope they take that with them for the rest of their lives. I'm not afraid of ultra running. I'm not afraid of the distance. I'm not afraid of what the challenges ultra running throws at me, and situations that I'll face on whatever event I do next. One thing that I am afraid of is letting my children down. I'm afraid of not being the best father I can be. I'm always trying to show them that I'm there for them, and I'll always support their, whatever they choose to do in life. I was looking to reconnect with the trails, and I started spending a lot of time, studying trees and eating bush tucker, and really connecting myself. And I thought, well, what better way to get back into running, and what better way to contribute to bush and nature and the environment. I'll run 100 Ks and plant 100 trees along the way, and I find trees to be really resilient, and I think that's what drew me to them. They face just as much adversity as we do as humans. Sometimes they get knocked down, and sometimes the bush can get a fire through it, and but they always come back. They always grow new limbs. They come back as strong as ever, and I felt as though I could relate to that. It's just something that really resonated with me. It was important for me to introduce that to my kids as well. I think the most important thing you can do as a parent, and or that I've found, is to plant a tree and just let them watch it grow, let them look after it and nurture it. I think it builds a lot of character, planting a tree, because you do grow an attachment to it, and hopefully that's a good reminder for them when they grow up and they can visit that tree and know that it's just as strong as what they are. After I finished planting those trees, my life changed a little bit, because I decided to quit my job to purely focus on conservation. I felt like it was the right thing to do, and it's what I wanted to do. I want them to grow up, and when they have their kids and their kids have their kids, I hope that it gets passed down. You know, when I'm long gone, you know, I want them and their kids, I want them to go visit trees and, you know, and say, well, look, this is what we did when, you know, we were younger, when we were your age. And I guess trying to teach them the greatest lesson. And it's about connecting to something much greater than ourselves.